Welcome, everybody. You are listening to the Boss Body Podcast, and this is Sarah Haas. And as usual, I am so happy that you're here. And I'm really excited about this episode because I have a special guest. Her name is Christina Jensen. She's a doctor of physical therapy, and she specializes in pelvic health and holistic wellness. And pelvic health is one of the topics I have really been wanting to have on for you guys for a long time. Because as you know, this podcast isn't just about nutrition, it isn't just about fitness, it is holistic. And I want to cover all things women's health and anything that can improve your life, that can help you thrive instead of just survive. And pelvic health is one of those things that I think a lot of us don't think about or don't even realize exists for us. And thankfully, I feel like it's coming a little more into the forefront. We're learning about it a little more. I personally was introduced to it several years ago because I actually broke my tailbone. And I didn't really realize that the tailbone is so connected to all those pelvic muscles. And so I went to a physical therapist, and while she was checking out my tailbone and asking me questions, she also started asking things like, do you have any issues, like since you've had children, with leakage? You know, how when you laugh too hard or you sneeze? And I was like, oh, well, yeah, if I'm jumping or if I'm running, those kind of things will usually cause a little bit of leakage, but that's totally normal, right? Because, I'm a mom, I've had kids, everything evolves. And I think that we very much have been taught that that's normal. That's a normal part of aging. And I've come to realize that that is absolutely not the case. And I want as many women to know this as possible, and also to realize that there are a lot of other issues going on that physical therapy can help. So, Christina, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to get the word out.
Yeah. So tell me, how long have you been in the field of women's pelvic health? Well, it's not just women, it's men as well, correct?
Absolutely. Everybody has a pelvic floor. But women, especially, our pelvic floors go through so much over the course of our lifespan with pregnancy, with hormonal changes. I think pelvic health seems to be especially important for women at every stage. I have been doing pelvic health since I decided to go to PT school. So that was a second life decision for me after what happened in my experience with my pregnancy and the birth of my daughter. And so that is how pelvic health found me. And I decided I wanted to be able to work with people in this way. So I made the decision to go back to PT school in 2015. I graduated in 2019, and we are in 2023 now. And I've been doing pelvic health since day one.
Yeah. And so you and I were discussing this earlier, and I mentioned urinary incontinence, but that's not the only issue that you help people with. Can you give us some ideas of other things that we kind of tend to think is just normal, or, oh, well, that's just how my body works. That's just kind of the things that I'm going to live with. And some of the things that you help with, we don't even realize is tied to pelvic health.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the the short answer to that question is anything that interrupts your life, and that can be leakage, like you said. That can be even just frequency of urination or urgency that causes you to have to kind of drop what you're doing and do the little waddle to the bathroom and hope that you make it on time. If you're going to the bathroom to empty your bladder more than every 2 hours, that's not really what we would consider to be normal. That's too much, and we can make changes there.
And that's no
And
matter how much water we're drinking, right? Because I'm always
oh my gosh,
encouraging people to drink more water.
absolutely. I drink 4 to 5 liters of water a day, and I empty my bladder about every 3 hours. The body is amazing at accommodating to whatever our normal behaviors are. So if we've taught our bladder that we need to go every 45 minutes, that's what the bladder is going to want us to do. And we can teach it new tricks as well.
And there are other things besides the whole urinary topic. So people come to you for things like having pain during sex or having the absence of pleasure and even pain in other parts of their body, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So that can be pain during intimacy, like vaginal pain. That can also be generalized pelvic pain. If you just kind of feel like you've got a headache in your low belly all of the time, that can be a muscular condition that a pelvic floor physical therapist can help with. Even just like low back pain, hip pain, sciatica, all of that can have pelvic floor functions. A couple of things that people are always surprised to hear that I work with are things like endometriosis, IBS, even erectile dysfunction. All of that can be um, helped with a pelvic floor physical therapy program. So, going back to what I said at the beginning, if it's interrupting your life, whatever it happens to be, especially for these topics that are so personal and it's harder to talk with your primary care provider or whoever, but we'll joke about leaking on ourselves, or we'll joke about having some of these other problems with our friends because it's become so normalized for us, and it doesn't need to be normal.
And it's not normal. It it
Absolutely not.
it is widespread.
It is common. It is common, not normal. Um,
Right.
and I would love for everyone listening to really think about what they're tolerating in their lives that maybe they don't need to.
Absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of us are told by our doctors, and it's often a man, not always, some OBs are women as well, to just do Kegel exercises. That's what I've always heard. And there's not a lot of explanation that goes with that. It's kind of just like tighten and release, tighten and release. And when I started going through pelvic physical therapy, she was actually saying, that is the opposite of what you need to be doing because you are so tense
Mhm.
and the Kegels are just exacerbating the situation. And so she started giving me other things that I could do to relieve that. And that's one of the things that you told me that I thought was profound is that we hold a lot of our stress in our in our pelvic. It's hard for me to spit that out for some reason in our pelvic floor. And that can come from just stress of life. It can come from childbirth. It can come from adolescence or any traumas we've experienced. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, I could talk a lot a bit about that, but I'll keep it brief today. Stress is not something that we need to fear or avoid. Stress is part of being a biological organism. Stress is a natural part of life, and it's actually beneficial to our physiology to experience low levels of stress. It inspires our body to grow and adapt and get stronger. So it's not about the stress itself, it's about what are we doing with it. Do we have healthy coping mechanisms? Do we understand how it works? Do we understand how to recover from our stress so that we can cycle back around into our new strength? The pelvic floor is a really interesting set of muscles in the body because it receives innervation, meaning communication from the nervous system. It receives communication from both our conscious nervous system, the stuff that we do on purpose, and our autonomic system, which is our unconscious system. It's the stuff we don't do on purpose, like beat our heart and respirate through our lungs and regulate our blood pressure. And it's all of the stuff that's going on in the background that's just part of our baseline function. And so, yes, we can Kegel and we can tell those muscles to squeeze, 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 but those muscles are also receiving instructions about a host of other things, that's going to be influenced by how well you're managing stress through the body.
And not just stress from the present, stress from the past.
Yes, absolutely. It's cumulative because the body functions on feedback cycles. It's always it always needs to be sort of looking at the big picture about where you're at and what you've been through and where you want to go from here.
Yeah, and a lot of women have experienced sexual trauma, and,
Mm,
that may not be a specific incident or an assault or something like that, but it could be, if you had sex and you didn't want to, or if you had a bad experience, like, in adolescence. So it
or
seems like
even just acting like sex is pleasurable if it's not. Maybe
Mhm.
it's not even pain as much as it's just not pleasure, but you're still teaching your body that this is not a fun thing that you're doing, and eventually your body starts to hold on to that message.
Yeah, and we're taught, a lot of us as women, as we grow up, that, sex is an obligation, and that, like you said, everything, every thought, every emotion, every action we take has a physical reaction in your body. And as women, the pelvic area is an energy center that's really important to our overall being. And so the accumulation of all these different things really adds up.
It really does.
So I know that you have some things that you teach your clients that we can do for ourselves, kind of some starting points on understanding what's going on in our individual bodies. Of course, we recommend if you're having any of these issues to go see a pelvic health specialist, but you have some simple things that we can do for ourselves.
Yes. And this is the kind of stuff I get so excited about because really everybody can do some really simple things to be taking good care of themselves. And so this will be a fun little list for us. Um, the first thing that's really easy for everybody to do is take a walk every day, get some sunshine, and drink your water. And those are the things that we all know is good for us. And for whatever reason, it ends up not happening a lot of the time. But
And
if
those
you
are
can
the
practice,
things I preach all the time, but not necessarily for pelvic health.
yeah, but it's all connected. It's all connected to your overall wellness. So that's the easy one. What I really like people to start to learn how to do when they're working with me is we talk a lot about rhythm awareness. And so, what that means is starting to understand how your body is functioning within your environment. We're thinking about your circadian rhythm. So, we're thinking about when do you go to bed? How well are you sleeping? When do you wake up? Do you have a regular rhythm there? Things like appetite, things like bowel movements. And then, of course, doing monthly breast checks as well as monthly vulvar checks, and getting down with yourself with a mirror and looking at your skin, looking at your color, looking at your tissue consistency, and how everything's feeling. And that is something, again, that I think would be such an easy thing for people to incorporate into their routine. And it's going to give you such a good relationship with your body and understanding what your normal actually is. And if there are things that you're not happy with, or you have questions about, or you're like, it didn't really look like that last month, now we know what kinds of questions we can ask our healthcare providers.
And I love that you said, we need to learn about ourselves. We need to get in touch with ourselves because, that can be an uncomfortable area for a lot of people to explore. We're not taught that, we're taught to not even use the words vulva and vagina. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, it's your private parts. It's down there. And, really, it's just another body part. It's just another natural part of our body, and it needs care just like everything else does. Think about how much effort we put into our face and our skin and examining every little area and, giving it whatever care it needs to be healthy and nourished. And our vulvas are no exception, and
Absolutely.
we are neglecting a really important part of our body.
Absolutely. If I mean, we take care of our cars, right? Like we give our cars gas and we take them to the shop and get them tuned up and we change the oil and we pay attention to whether that vehicle is in functional shape. And if it's not, then we're going to do something about it. We're not just going to let it slowly fall apart. Our bodies are our vehicles through our life. And what I wish I could do is just hand everyone a user manual about how we can give ourselves good maintenance throughout the lifespan, so that we continue to be able to enjoy riding around in this vehicle.
Yeah, and please don't take better care of your car than you do your vagina.
Right.
That's so skewed, but it's so true. I love how you put that because we need to give ourselves just as much care and attention as we do all of the things in our lives, not just like cars in our home, but also other people, our
Mhm.
spouses, our partners, our children, our families, our loved ones. And the pelvic area is such a source of our femininity, of our feminine wisdom. And neglecting that area means neglecting a part of our spirit, of our soul.
I agree. I agree. Which brings me to my next point. And so the next actionable item that I'm offering today, is an invitation to masturbate more often. Masturbation is something that many women don't fully understand how to incorporate that into their life. And what I want everyone to know is that that is part of a healthy self care routine. Masturbation is going to exercise those pelvic muscles. It's going to get good blood flowing, which is going to be healthy for your tissues. It's going to activate good hormones like oxytocin and estrogen. So chemically, you're doing a healthy activity there. Um, as we move through our lifespan, our bodies change, our preferences change, our sensation changes, and I get a lot of ladies in my office telling me that things just don't really feel the same during intimacy as they used to, and spending time touching yourself and getting to know yourself each and every day, is going to be able to help you understand what's going on with your body, what still feels good, and that's going to help you be able to communicate that with your partner, if that would be helpful to you. I think that orgasm is kind of like a vital sign of pelvic floor function. And so if we're having absence of orgasm or changes in orgasm quality, once again, now we know that those are some questions that we can pose to our healthcare providers about what might be causing that.
And I think that is another reason that going to a pelvic health specialist, because we might feel more comfortable talking with someone like you versus our OBGYN who, I've had discussions about some of these things with my regular doctor, and there's no depth to it. There's no real explanation. They'll say, yeah, hormones change as you age, or, yep,
Yeah.
dryness is what happens. And never once have they mentioned masturbation or orgasm? And it's something that women do not talk about, at least in my
Mhm.
experience. It's taboo, it's embarrassing, and it's kind of funny because men have been talking about it forever. They will even brag about it, not just admit it, but be proud of
Mhm.
it. And that is something that I want women to embrace a lot more. So I'm so glad
Absolutely.
that you brought that up.
Absolutely. It is healthy, it is normal to masturbate whenever.
Yeah,
Whenever you have that urge whenever you are just feeling stressed out, and maybe you need to do something nice for yourself. Go spend some time and love yourself in that way. It's healthy, it's normal, and it's going to be good for your pelvic floor.
It's self-care. It's just another aspect of self-care, not just sex with a partner, but sex with yourself. A
Absolutely.
and
I
a
love it.
lot of my listeners are kind of in that midlife period and may not have experienced this or been doing this all the way up until this time, over 40, over 50 and beyond. And that's when hormones are changing. And like you said, there's dryness, there's pain, there's changes in orgasm. And it feels like that can be a really important time in life to start exploring these things.
Yeah. I mean, if we don't understand our own bodies, then how are we going to help someone else with that as well?
And those of us who have daughters
Yeah.
and, we might have gotten messages from our parents and they got messages from their parents that this is not something nice girls do. This is not something, hide this, don't talk about it. And we inadvertently pass those things down to our kids. And so opening up this conversation can really help generations ahead of us.
Yes. Yes. We are breaking the cycle right now.
Yeah. So let me just recap some of the things that you've talked about for those who are listening. So, first of all, you mentioned sunlight and walking and hydration, which are just basic healthy things to do, but which also can improve your pelvic floor function. And then the self awareness, the doing your own exams, the looking at yourself, getting to know your body. And thirdly, the masturbation aspect of getting to know your likes, your dislikes. And not just that, but it's healthy. Like you said, it increases estrogen, it boosts everything. Orgasms are important. So I love that you said. So thank you for these amazing tips.
I hope that they are helpful for your listeners. Again, it's simple things. And for so many people, it's just not something that's really occurred to them to put into an intentional practice in this way. My patients who work with me, they come to me for their own reasons. What we end up talking about a lot is mindset, and what is this relationship that you have with your body, and what things are you willing to tolerate in your life, and what things can we do differently so that life feels good. I think that life is supposed to feel good at any age, and that's what I'm in this for. Is I'm in this for the long haul, from adolescence to early menstruation to pregnancy to postpartum to beyond. We deserve to enjoy our lives, and we deserve to be resilient women. And I think that pelvic floor physical therapy is a great tool in your toolbox to achieve that.
So, if people want to learn more about pelvic floor physical therapy, can you give us some suggestions?
So these days, social media has made it so easy to find a variety of resources. You can get on YouTube, you can get on Instagram, you can get on TikTok. I can't say anything about TikTok. I haven't been there. But there are some really great accounts that people can follow if they want to get this sort of thing on their feed. One of my favorite YouTubes that I can share is called The Flower Empowered. And she speaks specifically a lot about pelvic floor health for the postpartum woman, for the midlife woman, when we're looking at things like exercising with pelvic floor prolapse or things like that. A lot of really great education there. On Instagram, I would recommend the Vagina Whisperer. That is probably one of the first really like one of the first pelvic health accounts that got really big on social media. And so her name is Sarah Reardon. I've taken coursework from her. She's been doing this for a long time and she's wonderful. Um, pelvicrehab.com is sort of the flagship website for pelvic health providers who are trained through Herman and Wallace, which is where I've received most of my pelvic training. And there's also a provider directory on that website. So if anyone would like to look for pelvic floor health providers in their local area, that's the place to do it.
Oh, that's great information. Yeah. And I think the fact that this is blowing up on social media is an indication of how much we need and want this information.
Absolutely. And I'm so appreciative for all of those people out there who are producing such high quality content that is free to the public. And so if you're curious about this, speaking to your listeners, get online, get on the internet, get on your social media feeds. I mean, if you type pelvic health into a search bar one time, the algorithm knows, and you will find more information than you can handle. And so as far as for your own life, keep it simple. Think about these simple things that we talked about today. And then if there's something that you see in your life that you'd like to change, that's when we start asking questions.
And you have some resources as well. Is that right?
So you can find me on my website, which is feelthebrightside.com. My private practice here in Johnson City, Tennessee is Brightside Integrative Physical Therapy. And so on my website, you'll be able to get a better idea about what I do. And there's an invitation there that you can speak with me. So even if your listeners are not local to my area, I do remote work, I do virtual consultations. Basically, I'm happy to chat about pelvic health with just about anybody, anytime. And so I love what I do and I love being able to share it with people.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate all those resources. And I am so grateful that you are working to get this information out. Education is power. And
Absolutely.
as women, a lot of women's health gets neglected and not talked about. And so I'm so, so grateful that you're getting this information out here. And I think the work that you do is amazing. So I want to thank you so much for being on today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you for wanting to help spread the word. Thank you for seeing the value in this. So thank you for everything that you're doing to help women, and by virtue of that, you're helping the next generations of women as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you all for being here and for listening. I just appreciate it. And I know that this has been really, really great information. And that's all we have for today. So until next time, I'll see you then.